Good afternoon, namaskar, and good morning to all those friends who are joining us from the other parts of the world. We very warmly welcome you here to the 12th virtual discourse, which is on the theme of understanding individual rights and freedom. Humanity's well-being lies in moderation. Thank you very much, dear friends, for joining us. I welcome our keynote speaker today, Dr.Sohayl Mohajer. Very thankful to him for making time for us to join this discourse. I welcome the former speakers, all other friends, dear friends who have joined us to this virtual discourse. Dear friends, we would like to start with a couple of prayers. And let me check. As always, we would like to start our program with a couple of prayers, and I will mention the names of the dear friends who are going to recite the prayers. You know that prayers and words of God, they have incalculable influence on the human hearts. So therefore, before we begin the program, we always make sure to recite the words of God, which is going to permeate a tranquil and positive ambience within us. And it is also going to have a soothing impact, a healing impact on all those who are still in distress during this crisis, which is unprecedented during our lifetime. So, dear friends, first I would like to request Mr. Hemati to recite a prayer, and then it will be followed up by Mrs. Basanti Shinoy, and the third prayer will be recited by Miss Karishma. I suppose, let me check if Karishma is there. Yes, she's there. So first, Mr. Hemati will recite the prayer, then after that, Mrs. Shinoy, and it will be followed up by Miss Karishma. Thank you very much, dear friends.
My love is my stronghold. He that entereth therein is safe and secure. And he that turneth away shall surely stray and perish. Son of being, my love is my stronghold. He that entereth therein is safe and secure. And he that turneth away shall surely stray and perish. O son of being, my love is my stronghold.
Hey. हे परमेश्वर, यह वर देती ये कदा की ज्योति सारी पृथ्वी पर छा जाए, और साम्राज्य प्रभु का है, साम्राज्य प्रभु का है। यह है इसके सभी समुदायों एवं राष्ट्रों के ललाट पर अंकित हो जाए। इसके सभी समुदायों एवं राष्ट्रों के ललाट पर अंकित हो जाए। हे परमेश्वर, हे परमेश्वर, हे परमेश्वर, हे परमेश्वर। वर दे, वर दे, वर दे, हे परमेश्वर, वर दे, एकता की ज्योत सारी, एकता की ज्योत सारी पृथ्वी पर छा जाए। साम्राज्य प्रभु का है, साम्राज्य प्रभु का है, यह भाव सभी जनमानस के ललाट पर अंकित हो जाए, अंकित हो जाए।
Thank you, dear friends. Many, 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 many thanks and heartfelt thanks for your melodious and soul-uplifting chants. We are truly grateful for your support. So, dear friends, I once again welcome all of you here to the 12th virtual discourse. I also welcome our keynote speaker today, Dr.Sohayl Mohajer. I also welcome all other dear friends that you have made time and participated in this course, which is only organized for the sake of awareness and education in the society. Dear friends, as you know, this is a monthly or at times a bi-monthly program which is organized by the members of the Baha'i community. As we have mentioned in the past, these programs focus mainly on awareness and education of the people on various social and spiritual issues. And you know that the primary and fundamental goal of the worldwide Baha'i community is to attain the oneness of humankind, and this goal can only be attained through education and awareness and training, moral capacity building and transformation of the people we are truly grateful to receive a lot of support from the friends and lots of mails from the friends appreciating the initiative. Hence, we keep receiving requests from the friends to share with them the recordings of the discourse from time to time, particularly from those friends who are missing the program due to their preoccupations. We are delighted to inform you, as we also informed you by emails, that the recordings of all the previous discourses are now live on the YouTube channel, and you can watch them as per your own convenience. I have shared, I will ask Adib to share the link of the channel so that you can note it down. Yes, please share it. You can note it down. Please support and subscribe the channel and publicize this small, modest initiative for maximum participation in the programs and for betterment of our society. The more we have supporters, the more attention and participation of the people we have in our programs, it is going to create ripple effect, and for the education and transformation of the people, it will make people conscious of their God-given accountability or the responsibility they have, the inescapable responsibility they have towards our children, our future generations, and the common future. Those of you are joining for the first time, please do share your contacts in the chat box for inviting you once again and for sending further communications to you in the future. Now, before we introduce our keynote speaker and the subject of today's discourse and request him to address us, I will take a couple of minutes as we do every time, particularly for the benefit of those friends who are joining us for the first time. As we mentioned before, these series of programs are being organized by the members of the Baha'i community, probably which is the most diverse body of people on this planet. And the basic teachings of the Baha'i faith remains as the oneness of God, oneness of humankind, and oneness of religions. It is because of this logical and scientific principles, just within a very short span of time, say less than 200 years, we can see the Baha'i communities virtually in all the parts of the world, and they work relentlessly for the unification and betterment of humankind. For the Baha'i community, education remains at the core of its activities. Dear friends, it is a fundamental belief professed by the members of the Baha'i community that every human being is noble, and all of them are rich in gems of inestimable value, and it is only education which can help to reveal its potential, to enable them to discover those treasures that are latent within them. It enables the human, it implies that the human beings are the highest creation of God. Their creation is distinct from the other forms of life because of their power of intellect and free will. They can segregate the truth from error. It is the human free will, or in other words, the human consciousness that solely is able to make positive decisions and contribute to the process of building a better society for all of us. Dear friends, we see that ignorance or inadequate understanding of the existential issues, of the social issues, or the concepts related to the purpose of human life and its existence are the prime causes of stubborn prejudices, mainly contributing to all the social ills around us. In this context, we organize these programs to enrich the human understanding and awareness on all the pertinent issues that affects our lives and our affairs. We seek to evoke positive consciousness within the hearts and minds of the people, so that they can be responsible for their own growth, and they can also contribute to the betterment of the society. The Baha'i community also undertakes tens of thousands of educational initiatives across the world, and they conduct the moral education for children, junior youth empowerment programs, and also study sessions for the adults in order to bring about unifying vision in them to erect a better society for all of us and for the future generations. We understand that the lecturing sessions are not much useful. Therefore, our programs are deliberately designed to be participatory. And after the address of the keynote speaker, we will leave the floor open for comments and observations and the feedback of the friends. Our idea is to hear everyone, to involve them in the educational process in order to bring about vibrant communities around us, the community that starts from us, our extended family members, our neighbors, and to all those who inhabit in our neighborhood. Each one of us responsible and accountable for our common future. And dear friends, there is no room for passive observers or listeners. We wish to consult, work together, build bridges, create love and unity, create a unifying vision, a cohesive consciousness within everyone, which will contribute to nation building and to realize our vision of one world, one family. So our purpose is not intellectual excellence here. Rather, we are trying to, transform the outdated way of thinking, cultivate a holistic understanding of the concepts, realities of the human existence, to understand the real purpose of human life, and to understand our capacity, to enhance our capacity to serve and to build a vibrant and prosperous neighborhood around us. So, dear friends, let us initiate conversations, discuss the contemporary issues, share our concerns, spread positive ideas, to facilitate humanity's passage to maturity, to bring about a better culture around us where there is no conflict, no misery, and we will all be able to live together in happiness and joy and harmony. Dear friends, it is only a question of time to realize these ideas into reality, and it depends on the efforts, sincere efforts of all of us. So in this context, this is our 12th spiritual discourse with all your love and encouragement, and it has truly inspired us to sustain this initiative. So I request all of you, dear friends, to actively participate in the program. Please switch on your videos, show your hands, to speak, to publicize our programs to wider society, in order to ensure maximum participation in the programs. We invite you, your family, and help this modest initiative. Let us work together for a better world, for a better future for our children and future generations. Dear friends, the theme of our discourse today is, as I mentioned earlier, understanding individual rights and freedoms. Humanity's well-being lies in its moderation. We know that the subject of individual rights and freedoms are of immense importance to each of us, and they are discussed around us all the time, in most of the discourses of the society, particularly over the recent decades. It has given rise to incessant debates among the rulers, thinkers, and even the common citizens, thinking about what should be our right, when it is violated, and so many related complex issues, which the keynote speaker is going to address us. Convenience, personal benefit, entitlement, it remains at the core of the issue that we are going to discuss today. So the question is, are there any limits to such freedoms and rights? What is the role of the rule of law here? Is there a balance between the personal entitlements and social well-being? What about the individual duties, of the citizens towards nation building? There are many more questions to ask. We argue and sincerely advocate that freedom is essential to all expressions of human life. But if it is allowed to pass a moderation, it would unleash pernicious social impact. There must be an appropriate balance between individual rights and responsibilities. To talk about these complex issues, we have today Dr. Sohayl Mohajer with us as our keynote speaker. Dr. Sohayl Mohajer is a thinker, writer, and an excellent educator. He has been associated with education for a number of decades. He is the director of the Foundation for Advancement of Science, which is based in Lucknow, which is active in building the community schools and many other social impact measures around the issue of education. And Dr. Sohayl Mohajer has served in the number of Baha'i institutions, and he is a very prominent member of the Baha'i community of India. We are truly grateful to Dr. Mohajer to join us, to address our discourse, and to make time for us. So may I kindly request Dr. Mohajer to unmute yourself and you please address us. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to see my good old friends again. Yeah, I think the topic chosen for today deals with the issue of human rights, human freedoms, and also, the concept of moderation or the middle path. Now, try to imagine that you're living in a country where you are not allowed to own property, or you're not allowed to speak freely without being arrested, or you're prevented from voting for the candidate of your choice in an election. Now, how would you feel? What would you do if you were not allowed to practice your religion freely and without fear? Trust me, there are countries like that that don't give you any form of freedom. And I'm sure that most of us wouldn't want to live in such countries. Freedom is something that most people value more than anything else. People give up their lives, in order to attain freedom. Hundreds and thousands of oppressed people all over the world have fought and died in the name of freedom. How many people sacrificed their lives in our own country until, we seized our freedom from the British yoke and subjugation? But let's look at another scenario. How would you feel if you were living in a country where people were given, complete freedom? People were allowed to do anything they liked. They could rob any shop, hit anyone they didn't like, refuse to go to work, or they went to work late and came back home early, where people were free to beat their spouses or abuse their children. Again, I'm sure that many of us wouldn't want to live in that country. So freedom can be both good and bad. When we talk about individual rights and freedoms, which one of these two scenarios are we referring to? To me, both extremes are bad. They don't look very attractive. So the theme of today's session suggests that our true freedom and our real well-being is in moderation. Now, what do we mean by that? Does it mean that we should be free half the time and not free the rest of the time? Or does it mean that we should have certain rights and freedoms during the day, but lose them at night? So what do we mean by moderation and the middle path in this particular context? I think that, this issue of human rights and human freedoms, as well as our perception of moderation and the middle path, need to be properly defined, because there seems to be a lot of confusion when we talk about these issues and concepts. So let's begin our discourse with defining human rights and human freedoms. Basically, individual rights are those that are considered so fundamental and so essential that they merit the legislation of certain laws to protect them. Now, you may ask me, to protect them from what? I think human rights must be protected from interference by the state or by government agencies, and also from the abuse of other individuals. Some of the most important and common human rights are like, the freedom of choosing our own religious beliefs, the freedom of thought, the freedom of expression, the freedom of action, and the freedom to have the right to privacy, which means that we want our personal information to be protected from public scrutiny. We also want to have the right to own personal property. These rights and freedoms, however, create or give rise to a number of questions. For example, let's begin with the right to the freedom of expression. In America, they call it, the First Amendment. Now, my question is it okay for people to say anything they like? Should people be given the freedom to say things that are not true or say things that would endanger the safety and security of others. We all of us witnessed what happened in America last year when the president of the country said a lot of stuff about the presidential election that was held in that country. He said all those things under the First Amendment that provides the citizens with the right to freely express their opinions, even when those opinions are not based on facts. Afterwards, we all witnessed the problems that ensued and the lives that were lost. Or let's take the case of, right to property. Is it okay for someone to own 20 houses while millions of people do not have a single room to live in? What I'm trying to convey is that, understanding the true concept of human rights and freedoms is not an easy task. In fact, it is quite complicated. It is the same, with moderation and the middle. It is not very easy to understand or to explain these concepts. Now, one of the earliest philosophers who highlighted the concept of moderation was Aristotle. In one of his treatises, Aristotle tried to define what is meant by virtue. And he defined virtue as the ability to find the middle ground between two extremes. I have written it, somewhere here, what Aristotle said. He says, when he tries to define virtue, he says virtue is a state of being, a state apt to exercise deliberate choice, being in the relative mean, determined by reason, and as the person of practical wisdom would determine. Now, you see, as Aristotle, here tries to underscore the fact that to live a virtuous life, we have to seek moderation. Here we have to bear in mind that in order to lead a moderate life, as per what Aristotle says, we must vigilantly consider two fundamental points. In the first place, we need to employ wisdom and prudence so as to practice moderation. Wisdom would discourage us from going to extremes or opting for dogmatism. Secondly, it is through moderation, again, as per Aristotle's thought, that we can become balanced individuals using this good quality for developing, the ethical and rational elements of our personality. But I think the most authentic concepts of the middle path and moderation can be found, in religious scriptures. One of the best definitions of this concept can be found in the Holy Scriptures, or Holy writings of Buddhism. The Buddhists, believe that the Buddha, after he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, and after remaining silent for 49 or 50 days to complete the process. From there, he traveled to Sarnath, which is a small town very close to Varanasi, which is a very holy city in Uttar Pradesh, in the state where I live. And when he reached Sarnath, he came into contact with 5 of his old, companions, with whom, they lived an ascetic, life. They practiced self-mortification for, I think, 6 years together. Now, when Buddha's, old friends noticed the spiritual transformation in their friend, they requested, Lord Buddha to share, the reason for his spiritual transformation. And during this discussion, Lord Buddha said that the 2 extreme practices that was very, current at that time. One was the practice of going after the pleasures of self and after the material comforts of this life. And the other extreme was indulging oneself in self-mortification which Buddha said was painful and unprofitable. He said both extremes are bad. And he suggested that God wants us to avoid the extremes and follow the middle. And when his companions asked him, what is this middle path that you are talking about? Buddha explained to them that by middle path is meant to follow the noble eightfold path, which he said, it comprises of the right understanding, the right thoughts, the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, the right efforts, I don't know, the right mindfulness, and maybe one or two other areas. Now, if we pay attention to what Buddha mentioned, he didn't talk about, I don't know, going in the middle of the road or walking in the middle of the world. He said, by moderation is meant right understanding. So, it's right speech, right action. When we do something properly, when something is done in a right way, that is moderation. That is the middle. Now, this is very interesting and beautiful definition of this concept. And there are similar passages in the holy writings of most of the other religions. In the Bible, Jesus says that, I don't remember the exact words, but something like, those who fear God will always avoid extremes. And similarly, we have many passages in the Baha'i writings that describe this. Again, going back to Buddha, as explained by Lord Buddha, by following the middle path is always meant searching for the right path, so that we can have the right understanding, the right thoughts, the right concepts, so that we can use the right speech, say the right things, perform the right actions, and so on and so forth. And there is a very beautiful passage. I think part of that passage also was quoted by Dr. Mishra at the beginning of his presentation. I have written the whole quotation here. I read it out to you. It's from the holy writings of the Baha'i faith. This quotation is by Baha'u'llah, and it is really very profound. And I think it answers all the questions that are raised today about this whole concept of freedom and human rights and the other issues. Baha'u'llah says, consider the pettiness of men's minds. We find some men desiring liberty and priding themselves therein. Such men are in the depths of ignorance. Do you get it, what Baha'u'llah says? He says, if you are seeking liberty, if you are seeking freedom, you are in the depths of ignorance. Then he tries to explain. He says, liberty must in the end lead to sedition, whose flames none can quench. Thus warneth you, he who is the reckoner, the all-knowing. Know ye that the embodiment of liberty and its symbol is the animal. That which beseemeth man is submission unto such restraints as will protect him from his own ignorance and guard him against the harm of the mischief maker. Liberty causeth man to overstep the bounds of propriety and to infringe on the dignity of his station. It debaseth him to the level of extreme depravity and wickedness. We approve of liberty in certain circumstances and refuse to sanction it in others. Were men to observe that which we have sent down unto them from the heaven of revelation, they would of a certainty attain unto perfect liberty. Happy is the man that hath apprehended the purpose of God in whatever he had revealed from the heaven of his will, that pervaded all created things. Say, the liberty that profited you is to be found nowhere except in complete servitude unto God, the eternal truth. Whoso had tasted of its sweetness will refuse to barter it for all the dominion of earth and heaven. So you see here in this passage, I have, highlighted, underlined, 9 very important points that I think, we need to focus on and think about. So the first one is that it says that those who desire liberty and those who pride themselves therein are in the depths of ignorance, because liberty must in the end lead to sedition, whose flames none can quench. So this is the first point, that Baha'u'llah says the kind of freedom that people today talk about in the end would lead to sedition, whose flames nobody can quench. This is the first statement. The second statement is that the embodiment of liberty and its symbol is the animal. And the third one is that which beseemeth man is submission unto God, unto such restraints as will protect him from his own ignorance and guard him against the harm of the mischief maker. This was the third one. The fourth point is liberty causes man to overstep the bounds of propriety and to infringe on the dignity of his station. It debased him to the level of extreme depravity and wickedness. And the next one in the passage says, we approve of liberty in certain circumstances and refuse to sanction it in others. And the next statement is, were men to observe that which we have sent down unto them from the heaven of revelation, they would of a certainty attain unto perfect liberty. The eighth point is, happy is the man that had apprehended the purpose of God in whatever he had revealed from the heaven of his will that pervades all created things. And the last one is, the liberty that would profit you is to be found nowhere except in complete servitude unto God, the eternal truth. Whoso had tasted of its sweetness will refuse to barter it for all the dominion of earth and heaven. Now, these ideas are not only weighty, but they're also very controversial because they highlight many concepts that are quite contrary and in conflict with the current norms and beliefs in our society. We live in a culture that is becoming more and more obsessed with freedom. Parents are becoming very permissive and children are given the liberty to do as they please. If we truly understand these points that are in this tablet, our ideas on liberty would submit themselves to a tremendous transformation. So let's dwell on this topic for a bit longer, because it's really important. Now, the first maxim or the first statement in this quotation says that those who want no liberty, they are in the depth of ignorance. And then Baha'u'llah explains the reason. He says, because in the end, liberty leads to sedition, whose flames none can quench. Now, the word sedition here could mean, something like insurgents, something like mutiny, rebellion, revolt, subversion. These are the definitions of, sedition. Now, do these terms sound familiar? Aren't these some of the characteristics, we can see in several of our youth who are the product of systems of education that are giving them unlimited freedom? Now, keep that in mind and let's move ahead. In the second, maxim, it is mentioned that it's actually a bit shocking. It says the kind of liberty that we are talking about, it says the embodiment of liberty and its symbol is the animal. After, overcoming the initial shock of reading the statement, one has to admit that this is a factual assertion, the kind of absolute freedom that some people are talking about and are obdurately, demanding today is actually worthy of animals and not, commendable for noble human beings. So this is the second important statement in the quotation. And the The third statement is also important, but before we go to the third statement, let's quickly go through the fourth, fifth, and the sixth one. And these ones, state, they say that, first of all, liberty causes man to overstep the bounds of propriety and to infringe on the dignity of his station. And it debased him to the level of extreme depravity and wickedness. And the sixth sentence says that we approve of liberty in certain circumstances and refuse to sanction it in others. Now, the first two sentences clearly, state that limitless freedom persuades and influences human beings to cross the confines of decency and can turn them into, extremely wicked individuals. And the last sentence concludes that the manifestations of God give us freedom in certain areas, and they refuse to sanction it, in other areas. So these are all very interesting and unique points that we have to keep in mind. But the third, maxim, or the third, important point in that quotation is really interesting. It tells us that, let me find it. Yeah, it tells us that submission to certain restraints and limitations would protect us from our own ignorance and would guard us against the harm of the mischief makers. This sentence is clear. We need to, we need certain boundaries. We need certain laws to control our behavior, so that we are protected, from our own foolishness and from our own, imprudence and ignorance. And the seventh and the last maxims are the ones that really require a lot of thinking and introspection. The seventh one says that, our perfect freedom, our true freedom and liberty can be attained not by doing whatever we want to do, but by observing and obeying the teachings of God that are brought to us by his manifestations, by his messengers, by his prophets. And the last statement, in that passage tells us that true liberty can only be found in complete servitude unto God. I have been thinking a lot about these 9 very important maxims or principles that are in this passage. Of course, we very quickly and swiftly went through them. But, let's try to give a few examples to help us understand what these principles mean. For example, if all the drivers, I live in Lucknow, suppose if all the drivers in Lucknow agreed to religiously and diligently follow the traffic rules, that obedience would provide everyone with freedom from injury and accidents. Then the drivers could drive their vehicles without any tension and with the ease of mind. Could you imagine, the freedom, the liberty that these drivers would have, that they could drive without, anyone ramming into them or without anyone crossing, the traffic light? So it is actually obeying the laws, whether the laws of the government or the laws that brought to us by the manifestations of God that give us freedom. Or for example, if all of us obey the rule that nobody should touch things that is not theirs. If everybody in a city agreed to do that, to obey just this one rule, then all of us would have the freedom to sleep peacefully at night without worrying that someone would break into our house and rob us of everything that we have. So contrary to what most people believe, obeying the laws, it does not, restrict our freedom. On the contrary, these demarcations, these boundaries allow us to practice freedom, to be free. Now, one of the areas in which all of us want to be free is that of, decision making. We want to make our own decisions. But in order to make good decisions, First of all, we have to have complete information about the subjects which we often don't have. Then we also need to be wise and prudent, and many of us are not wise and prudent. And also, we have to be able to foresee the consequences of making that decisions, which is again not an easy task. So the upshot is that we keep making decisions that are foolish, that have very bad consequences, and we end up living very unhappy life. Now here in this passage that we just studied together, Baha'u'llah says something which is really extraordinary. He says the true freedom is only when you submit your will to the will of God and actually give up your freedom. You become free when you decide not to be free, when you willingly decide to just obediently, like a servant, submit your will to the will of your Lord and obey whatever your Lord tells you to do. That way, we don't need to undergo this pain of continuously making decisions. All the decisions are made for you, you just have to obey those decisions, knowing that these are the right decisions. These will lead to your salvation, to your progress, to your happiness. That is the whole purpose of our life. Everything that we do is to attain happiness, and God has created us to be happy. But we foolishly walk on those paths that actually make us miserable, make us sad, and make us make all these blunders and mistakes. Now, to understand this particular, maxim that was in that passage, we need to have one quality. And that quality is repeatedly mentioned, in the holy writings of most of the religions that I am familiar with. And that is spiritual perception. We all of us have many perceptions. Most of us are crazy for money. We do everything, to earn money, and we are never satisfied, with how much we earn, no matter how much salary we are paid or how much we earn through our business. We want more, and we assume that our happiness is in having more money. This is a general perception that you see all over the world. But when you go to the holy writings, there's just one passage I have chosen to study. Here, again, this is from the writings of Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah says, "O son of man, thou dost wish for gold, and I desire thy freedom. Thou thinkest thyself rich in its possession, and I recognize thy wealth in thy sanctity therefrom. By my life, this is my knowledge, and that is thy fancy. How can my way accord with thine?" So you see, we all want to be rich, but Baha'u'llah here tells us that you wish for gold, and I desire your freedom from that. So you see, when we understand this of running from morning till night for earning more and more money, for what? Baha'u'llah explains in another passage. He says, only fools go after things that are temporary, that have no permanence. Again, most of us, when we sit together, we are discussing, which share market is better? Should I, invest my money in this company or this company? We are always, preoccupied with this. But again, Baha'u'llah tells us how our money, our wealth should be spent. He says, "O son of man, bestow my wealth upon my poor, that in heaven thou mayest draw from stores of unfading splendor and treasures of imperishable glory. But by my life, to offer up thy soul is a more glorious thing. Couldst thou but see with mine." Again, you see, Baha'u'llah says, you want to invest your money, you want to definitely get a large profit out of that, spend it on the poor. He says, he doesn't say bestow your wealth, he says bestow my wealth, because it is whatever we have belongs to him. He says, bestow my wealth upon my poor, that in heaven you may draw from stores of unfading splendor and treasures of imperishable glory. So you see, when we change our materialistic perception with spiritual perception, then we become different individuals. We know how to spend our money, how much money do we need, how to make the best use of our time. Is really money worth all the efforts that we put in to earn it? We keep saving, making fixed deposit, buying property, and then we die, go back empty-handed, and all that money that we earn is blown away by our children, either in drinking or gambling or smoking, and is gone. And then after our death, we realize how foolish we were, that we wasted our life, our energy on all these stupid things. So I think, I don't want to speak too much because I know that many others have also comments they want to share. I just conclude by saying that true freedom comes about, first of all, by making one decision, using our freedom to make one decision. And that decision is, we don't want freedom. We want to completely submit our will to the will of God and follow his instructions. This is the first decision we have to make. And the second one is, we have to go continuously deeper into the holy writings and continuously change our perception, replace them with the spiritual perceptions, so that our lives, not only we attain true freedom, not only we free ourselves from making all these stupid decisions that every day we make, but we also attain contentment. We attain happiness. Our life becomes meaningful. We become a source of inspiration and joy to others. And we become instruments in the hands of God, through whom he establishes his kingdom on earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Sohayl Mohajer, for your illuminating address, for your thought-provoking analysis and beautiful way of explaining the concepts. Thank you so much. I'm sure that the friends have some questions which they will raise you later on and you will address them. At the heart of Dr. Sohail's talk and this difficult issue that afflicts our society, the subject of our discourse, is the ultimate truth that the order and societal progress can only be maintained by moral and mature human beings. You see, you will agree with me that moral capacity building is crucial to enhance our ethical decisions and to contribute to a society in a better way. Every now and then in our life, we struggle to be ethical and mature. We make decisions, correct decisions actually, or selfless decisions. How can we raise our consciousness to make mature decisions in our lives? The only solution is to immerse ourselves in the words of God, who sent his messengers from time to time, and we immersed in the writings, and we try to practice their teachings positively and proactively in our daily lives. This is why we ensure that in all our programs, we read and introspect some of the writings, some of the extracts of the writings we take from the holy books. So we have the motivational quotes. I would like to request Dr. Merchant, Dr. A.K. Merchant, he is there with us. Yes, he is there.
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Dr. Mishra, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sohayl Mohajer, for a very insightful presentation on the concept of freedom. So friends, as desired by the organizers, here are the motivational quotes. First, from the Bhagavad Gita. Let the scriptures be your authority in determining what should be done and what should not be done. You should perform your duty following the scriptural injunction. The ancient seekers of liberation also perform their duties with this understanding. Therefore, you should do your duty as the ancients did, governing sense, mind, and intellect, intent on liberation, free from desire, fear, and anger. The sage is forever free. Therefore, always remember me and do your duty. You shall certainly attain me if your mind and intellect are fixed on me. That's what Lord Krishna says. Next, we have from the Holy Quran. Do not follow that which you have no knowledge, and refrain from groundless assertions and conjectures. And do not mix the truth with falsehood, or conceal the truth while you know it. Help one another in acts of piety and righteousness, and do not assist each other in acts of sinfulness and transgression. It may be that you dislike a thing which is good for you, and that you like a thing which is bad for you. Allah knows, but you do not. The truth has now come from your sustainer. Let then him who wills believe in it, and let him who wills reject it. And extracts from the Holy Bible. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. For you were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. And then Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. Now the Lord is the Spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. From the Buddhist scriptures, no one outside ourselves can rule us inwardly. When we know this, we become free. At the end of the way is freedom. Until then, patience. Every human being is the author of his own health or disease. Nothing can harm you as much as your own thoughts unguarded. No one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. Love the whole world as a mother loves her only child. Just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings. From the Baha'i Holy Writings. Know ye that the embodiment of liberty and its symbol is the animal. That which beseemeth man is submission unto such restraints as will protect him from his own ignorance. Liberty causeth man to overstep the bounds of propriety and to infringe on the dignity of his station. It debaseth him to the level of extreme depravity and wickedness. Regard men as a flock of sheep that need a shepherd for their protection. This verily is the truth, the certain truth. We approve of liberty in certain circumstances and refuse to sanction it in others. True liberty consisted in man's submission unto my commandments. Baha'u'llah says, were men to observe that which we have sent down unto them from the heaven of revelation, they would, of a certainty attain unto perfect liberty. The liberty that profited you is to be found nowhere except in complete servitude unto God, the eternal truth. Consider the pettiness of men's minds. They ask for that which injured them and cast away the thing that profited them. They are indeed of those that are far astray. We find some men desiring liberty and priding themselves therein. Such men are in the depths of ignorance. It is incumbent upon them who are in authority to exercise moderation in all things. Whatsoever passeth beyond the limits of moderation will cease to exert a beneficial influence. Consider, for instance, such things as liberty, civilization, and the like. However much men of understanding may favorably regard them, they will, if carried to excess, exercise a pernicious influence upon men. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Merchant, for reading the motivational quotes. I hope that we have been able to receive some inspiration on the subject, how we have to tread the path, prescribed by the successive messengers of God from time to time. Okay, dear friends, now it is the time to switch on your videos. We are going to take a group photograph. Please switch on your videos, dear friends. I'm waiting another. I'm done.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dear. Thank you. Let's see. All right, dear friends. Let's before we open the floor for comments and questions, we're going to have a song. We have a beautiful lady from all the way Malaysia, Madam Pina, with us. She's going to sing a song for us on love and unity. So I request Madam Pina to unmute the mic. Yes, please go ahead.
Unmute. Okay. No one has position or a fancy car when he comes into this world. The police station or the opera house, he couldn't tell you where they are. All tiny babies in their mother's arms twinkle like the stars. Division and tradition will determine how their potential is aroused, and it's just one world, one humanity, and it's a small world. Without unity, harmony, equality, to set man free, to set man free. Division is a problem any child can solve. It's just a simple arithmetic. Division in society is more complex. It has made humanity sick. Love for the family is a wonderful thing. Few would not agree. But the value of love for humanity Many fail to see, and it's just one world, one humanity, and it's a small world. Without unity, harmony, equality, to set men free, to set men free, to set men free.
Thank you, Madam Pina, for this beautiful song, To Set Man Free. Wow, very beautiful song. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, dear friends, now it is the time to open the floor and to receive the comments and observations from the friends. I request all the dear friends to switch on the video, show me your hand so that I can allow you to speak and ask questions if you have, and our keynote speaker is going to answer your questions. Okay. You see who is there first. Okay, Dr. Merchant.
Well, I can't resist because today is, a very important day for the people of India. I would like to request our keynote speaker, Dr. Mohajer, to little bit broaden the concept of freedom, because today is the 150th anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who also struggled and sacrificed his life for the freedom of our country. So his concept of freedom for the nation was different from the concept of Mahatma Gandhi, a concept of freedom. So both worked for the same aims. But what Dr. Mohajer explained was very beautiful with respect to the individual. But when it comes to nation states, when it comes to communities and societies who are enslaved or who are deprived of their basic rights, because the subject of rights also is attached to the concept of freedom, how do we find a balance? How does the principle of justice also have an important bearing on the exercise of freedom? If you could kindly enlighten us a little more, Dr. Mohajer, really appreciate. I'll put my hand down.
Dr. Mohajer, you are muted. Please unmute. Yes.
Yeah, as you know, we explained in the beginning, this is a very complicated concept. Freedom is desired and appreciated more than any other quality in the world. And as you mentioned, hundreds and thousands of people, sacrifice their lives to free their own fellow human beings and to put an end, to the oppressive forces. But you see, the concept of freeing a society is something that, again, it has to be done. We need divine guidance. If we follow our own understanding, we cause a lot of bloodshed, because a lot of problems, and we may still not solve the issue. I think, as Baha'u'llah says, ultimately, the individuals, I believe, should be educated properly from beginning to become the seekers of truth. Everybody to be spiritually oriented, have a spiritual perceptions, then automatically these problems will go away. Because we have seen all over the world that even in our own country, we say we finally managed to get rid of the oppressors and attain our freedom. But the upshot was, we said that we replaced our white masters with brown masters. We have even now systems in place that I can say even more oppressive than the systems we had during the time of British. The British looted the country, but also they constructed colleges and schools and universities and made roads and railways. But our current leaders, they're just looting. They are not paying attention to the other aspect of it. So you see, the point is that ultimately the answer can be found in education and also following the instructions, the teachings of the manifestations of God. Because they Baha'u'llah says, he says, the prophets of God are like physicians. They come from age to age. They diagnose the problem for that particular age, and accordingly, they prescribe remedy. And the problems can be solved only, we submit our will to the will of God, forget our own foolish ideas, and follow, the instructions that they have brought for us. But it needs to be done at a much, larger scale. So I think what we can do is just try to reach to as many people as possible. Let them know that, the way that, the path that we have chosen is not leading anywhere. We have to follow the path brought to us or shown to us by the manifestation. I'm sure others have better solutions. They can also.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now I request Mr. Mishra, who has joined us from all the way Cuttack. He is a thinker and a writer, and I'm aware that he contributes to the discourse at many places. So I request him to share his views. Mr. Mishra, are you there?
Yes. Now am I audible, Dr. Mishra?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and wishing you a very happy new year.
Thank you
From
so
the core
much.
of my heart to all of my friends, including Dr. Mishra, Dr. Sohayl,
Thank you
and
so
of
much.
course the natural singer, the jubilant singer who sang for us. The way she sang with real true jubilation is really enjoyable, with a very good message. Thank you very much. Well, I do not want to take much of your valuable times, but let me introduce my another introduction, that I am from Cuttack, the city where Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was born. And today, fortunately and incidentally, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's birthday is being celebrated. So while the question or the title of the topic, that individual liberty, rights, freedoms, etc., we should distinguish, and we should be fully convinced that liberty is something different from the rights. Rights, which is constitutional and in legal terminology, this is entitlement. But liberty is a word which was originally derived from the Latin word liber, which means to make yourself free. And while we say that to make yourself free, that means we are through some bondages, we are through some adversities, we are through some imposed restrictions. So therefore, liberty is a responsible freedom. When we say liberty, that means the responsible freedom, and the innate freedom is a constituent part of it. So therefore, many international thinkers, political thinkers, and human thinkers, they always prefer the word liberty as a concept rather than rights. And when we say freedom, that freedom is always responsible, it is humanly responsible, internationally responsible, and even spiritually responsible. When we uplift our standard from so-called common things to the unique things that which we do possess from the from our very birth, that means we are achieving certain things. At last, I would like to say only one thing, that because we try our level best to confirm the pattern of the ongoing society, therefore we are facing an unnatural restriction or unnatural bondage, what should I say, restricted path to our freedom. Therefore, we are not truly enjoying and understanding the responsible freedom that is liberty. And when we say the 360-degree assessment of liberty, and when we try to understand the wholesome assessment of the liberty, we are to be integrated and we are to be panoramic, which includes individual, social, community, international, global, and of course, spiritual. What we need at last, and while concluding, I must say, what we need more is liberty and less is rights. When we say we are rights oriented, we are entitlement oriented. But when we say that we love liberty, That means we are nothing but a responsible human being of the global community and the spiritual community. Thomas Jefferson, his famous quotation said that man is born free, but everywhere is in the chain. That means this liberty and freedom is nothing but an integrated concept of human expression. Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra. Thank you very much, Dr. Sohayl, and Dr. Merchant also, who quoted the inspiring quotes for us. And of course, the singer who sang for us with a very jubilant spirit with that Dapulis desk, white rhythm making and all these things. Thank you very much. It was truly, Dr. Mishra, a New Year's gift for all of us. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Mishra. As usual, you're always thought-provoking, very profound. Thank you so much. Okay, we have Mr. Bhupinder Singh. I saw him. He wanted to share his views. If he's there, I can't see him. Very difficult. So many people. I don't see. I don't see him. Okay. My friend, Mr. Bhupinder Singh is here. He's there. Yes. Please share your views. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you to Mohajer sir for such a wonderful talk, and also the inputs given by Merchant sir from Gita and Quran. And the topic which I was taken today for this discussion, this is, I mean, the underlying the theme is freedom. Now, this freedom is, I think, all humans are blessed with freedom, the so-called free will, and the freedom to decide, freedom to talk, freedom to do anything. But unfortunately, for so many centuries and so many millenniums, the humanity on the entire planet has remained a victim of such social or whatever bondages, due to which nobody has, perhaps majority has never been able to one who wants to wield this sword and use the sword should also have the wisdom to use learns how to use this word when one gets a wound on himself or herself.
Mr. Bhupinder Singh, are you disconnected? It seems he is disconnected. We can't hear him. Okay. I can see my friend Mr. Ramon has joined all the way from Spain. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Would you like to share your views? Please unmute yourself. Yes. Please go ahead.
Is it open now?
Yes.
Hello. Good morning to everybody. Mostly located in that lovely country for me, which is India. Thank you so much, Dr. Mishra, for inviting me again to join this wonderful forum. Unfortunately, I arrived too late because of my miscalculation of the Spanish hour against the Indian hour. So I arrived too late to hear all the speech and all the comments coming from all of them. So I have no many views to share with all of you, unfortunately. But just one tip, because it happens every day here in the Western countries. No, which is the concept of freedom appears to be quite clear to us. No, what it's not fully defined or clearly defined is the limits applied to that freedom. Because the limits to that freedom depends on the rest of the people, the society, and even the political power. So it's a very complex matter, and I think it deserves time to think about it. That's all. Thank you so much,
Wonderful.
Dr. Mishra.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The concept that I think who was mentioning, Mr. Mishra was mentioning, the concept of freedom defined by Jefferson, Hobbes, Mill, these people, the concept which is defined by them, they were all defined during time of rebellion, during time of oppression. So the context has changed, the societal background is changed. So the new definition is coming up, how the society has to be governed with a new mindset. Anyway, let's proceed forward. Anyone else? Please show me your hands in case anyone wants to share. Let me check once again before we proceed further. Okay, I see Dr. Kazem is here joining us. Would you like to share your views, Dr. Kazem? Please unmute yourself. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Mishra, for inviting us. And with all these thought-provoking expressions, perhaps I would like also to humbly add one additional element to that. We spoke about some elements which were very important about the free will that we spoke. We spoke about some areas where our freedom needs to be disciplined the same way that the child needs guidance of their parents. That's another dimension. We spoke about moderation, which is required in the exercise of our liberties. I wanted to add one additional contribution, is also the responsibility which comes along with freedom and liberty. In Baha'i teachings, if I'm not mistaken, this is formulated as the responsibility which comes like the independent search of truth. We cannot exercise properly our freedoms and liberties unless we assume the necessary tasks. Let me illustrate what I mean. We are exposed, for example, to the media. We are exposed to very, very powerful propaganda, to advertisement, etc., be it commercial, be it political, etc. Now, if individuals want to exercise their liberty and freedom consciously, but they do not exercise the necessary work to look for what is the truth and what is the reality, then this exercise of liberty cannot work and be performed the way it has to function. That is my very, very humble contribution to this discussion. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Kazem. Thank you so much. Okay, I saw Dr. Rangadhar. He wanted to say something. Please unmute yourself. You want to share your views? Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm traveling now, so video will be a bit difficult.
Okay.
I would like to add one other element of this collaboration and cooperation, among the group of friends, whatever thing we do under liberty or under unity, this cooperation and collaboration plays an important role in our understanding. And I believe that, these two can bridge and we can reach a greater heights, especially when I heard that in Cuttack, the birthplace of Subhash Chandra Bose. Recently, we had a program in Malaysia. The people, when the think tank get together and they talk about the thing that he has done, is wonderful. And that is what I would like to share. Thank you very much, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, dear friends. So most of the opinions that we see here, they talk about the duties, the responsibilities, the investigation of truths. Beautiful ideas are being shared here. Thank you so much, dear friends, for joining. Now we go to towards the end part of the discourse that we call as reading and repeating the places. You see, this is a program. The idea here is that to repeat what we hear again and again in order to internalize what we have learned, and we carry back home to continue our homework hereafter. You might remember that we did something similar in our childhood when we were in the schools, while repeating the prayers and poems and rhymes in the schools, just to repeat in order to remember, because it has to be part and parcel of our consciousness all the time, that when we talk about our rights, we also talk about duties and responsibilities to others. Actually, when we were consulting, Mr. Bhupinder Singh was talking. He was disconnected, so I'm sorry. He is back. He will share his views. Then we will go back to reading and repeating of the pledge statement. Yes, Mr. Singh, please. It seems you are traveling anyway.
Yes, I'm traveling. I had to travel to my district headquarters.
Okay,
So
please go ahead.
I began this session. Yeah. I was saying that what I have observed is that freedom undoubtedly is so important for the humanity to actually exercise. But what I have observed is that over the centuries, humans were artificially not allowed to exercise their freedom. Most importantly, the so exercising the different sorts of rules and regulations. One rule or regulation might be considered bad in another society.
Mr. Singh,
In order
Mr.
to
Singh,
exercise free,
Mr. Singh, if you can
Yeah.
stop your car and talk, and then you can go ahead. Just for a few minutes, stop your car. So we don't. We are able to hear you. Unable to hear you.
Am I?
Yes,
am,
please.
Am I audible? Abhi?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. So I was saying that freedom is it is a facility available to human beings or to anybody, but to exercise this facility, one must have it in his or her hands, and there should be overall control and command of the human being himself, not of somebody else. Giving very small examples, or in all our societies, parents would like to their children to become to join a particular profession, or to study a particular course of curriculum, or to do anything. But I mean, this is such a small example, but it exists in all societies, almost all societies. No human being, I think, was ever allowed to exercise his or her freedom fully. And those people, ultimately, when one exercises his freedom, ultimately it is the freedom to tread on the path which leads to ultimate truth. But ultimate truth is a far goal. For doing small things, small daily and routine things, I really wonder whether humans on this planet, have ever been able to exercise their freedom fully. And this is very important. Allowing every soul to take his or her own smallest or biggest decision on his or her own is important. For that, I understand that the so-called guardians or parents or elders or teachers, including myself, should try to develop quality of decision making in the youngsters. If this is done across the globe, then the coming generations can be expected to become more free. The freedom is exercised by free decision making, free choice, not just in words. You should be permitted in letter and in spirit. Freedom of choice, freedom to do anything, freedom to take decisions. This is which will lead to ultimate spiritual freedom of any individual. And somebody who is free mentally and physically and spiritually, will ultimately understand or try to tread on the path which leads to the ultimate truth, and will try to liberate himself or herself out of the circle of this vicious circle of the Maya, whatever. But freedom must be permitted to be exercised by one and by all, and we guardians elders should only try, only provide a little fine tuning or guidance or inputs only when called for, or only when somebody knows for sure that somebody might take a very blundered sort of a decision. Only then. Otherwise, I believe every individual should be permitted to decide individually on his or her own. Every soul should be allowed to take its flight on its own, free flight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for your contribution. Thank you so much. Okay, so we were talking about the repeating the pledge statement, as I was just saying that we did all this during the school time, repeating the poems and prayers and songs. So it is very similar in nature. The idea is to carry home what we have learned, just to repeat what we have discussed. The ideas will be on the screen. So in order to reduce the noise, we will not unmute everyone. We will unmute only a couple of the friends, just to the symbolic gesture to repeat the pledge statements. But I request all the other friends to repeat wherever you are. But since you will be muted, it will not contribute to the noise. So Adib, I request you to unmute. I request you to unmute Dr. Merchant, Dr. Mohajer, Dr. Kazem, Mr. Ramon, and Mr. Hemmati, and Professor Panigrahi. I cannot see him. He was supposed to conduct the pledge statement. Professor Panigrahi, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So I am requesting Professor S.K. Panigrahi, who has joined us. He is going to read the pledge statement slowly, and we are going to all repeat after him. So kindly start, Professor Panigrahi, kindly start.
Good evening all in this august body of organizers, presenters of thoughts and concepts, of vision statements such as Dr.Sohayl, Dr. Merchant, Dr. Jiten Mishra in this virtual meet. Friends, just a line or two before I go on to the vision statement. Almost all the writings of the central figures of the Baha'i faith and almost all the messages of its supreme apex institution, beloved Universal House of Justice, are to carry forward a progressively unfolding material and spiritual civilization, where each member of the world, let's say every man and woman, is invited to partake in this great saga in what Shakespeare would say, building a brave new world, or what a work of art is man. So this presupposes that the involvement of individuals, of community and institutions of human society in a way humankind probably has never seen before. So with this purpose in mind, the organizers have thought of a takeaway from the seminar and wish to summarize in the form of the pledge statement. Thank you, Dr. Jiten Mishra, for the opportunity and for the privilege. So here is the statement of the pledges. I will read it slowly in the sense haltingly, and other friends, please join me in chorus. We recognize that
We recognize
We
that
recognize that
the source of our rights
the source of our rights
Source of our rights
is the endowment of talents and capacities
is the
is the
endowment
endowment of
talents,
talents
and
and
capacity
capacities
that the Creator has bestowed upon
that the Creator has
Creator
bestowed
has
upon
bestowed upon
all humans
all humans
all humans
without discrimination.
without
without
discrimination.
discrimination.
We therefore promise
We therefore promise
We therefore
who
promise
to appreciate this gift,
to appreciate
to appreciate
this gift,
remain grateful to God,
remain
remain
grateful to
grateful
God,
to God,
be conscious to walk the path
be
and be
conscious
conscious to
of
walk
the
the
path
path
prescribed by Him
prescribed by Him
prescribed by Him
to realize our potential
to realize our
realize our
potential
potential
and purpose of existence,
and purpose of
and purpose
existence,
of existence,
and fulfill our responsibilities
and fulfill our
fulfill our
responsibilities
responsibilities
towards the well-being of society.
towards the
towards
well-being
the
of
well-being
society.
of society.
We are aware
We are
We
aware
are aware
that freedom is essential to all expressions
that
freedom is
freedom is
essential
essential
essential to
to
all
all expressions
of our life,
of our life,
of our life,
but will understand that
but well
but
understand
well
that
understand that
beyond moderation, it can also cause
beyond
moderation
moderation
also
can
cause
also
can
cause
also cause
humans to overstep the bounds of propriety.
humans to
humans to
overstep
overstep
the
the
bounds
the
of
bounds of
bounds of
propriety.
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 Hence, we promise not to nurture
Hence,
Hence, we
And
promise
we
not to
promise not
nurture
to nurture
in the name of rights
in the name of
in the
name of
name of
rights
right
only personal entitlements
only personal
personal
entitlements
entitlements
that are selfish
that are
and
selfish
are selfish
and against commonweal,
and against
and against
commonwealth,
commonwealth,
rather ensure to balance
rather
ensure
ensure
to
to
balance
ensure to balance
between our rights
between our rights
between our rights
and our duties
and our
and our
duties
our
duties
duties
and obligations to our fellow humans.
and
and
obligations to
obligations
fellow
to our
humans.
fellow humans.
We recognize the truth that
we recognize
We
the truth
recognize
that
The truth that
that
our life emanate from
our lives emanate
our
from
lives emanate from
from
one common source,
one common
one
source,
one
common
common
source,
source,
are bound with the same universal
are
are
bound
bound with
with
the
the
same
same
universal
laws of God,
laws of
laws
God,
of
laws
God.
of God.
and therefore
and therefore
Therefore,
it is irresponsible and unfair
It is irresponsible and
irresponsible and
unfair
unfair
to advocate an unequal standard of rights
to advocate
to
an
advocate
unequal
unequal
standard
standard
of
of
rights
rights
of rights
and privileges.
and
and
privileges.
and
privileges.
privileges.
So we promise to reject
So we
We
promise to
promise to
reject
reject
prejudice,
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 educate everyone
educate
Educate
everyone
everyone
on the importance of equal rights
on the
on the
importance of
importance
equal
of
rights
equal
rights
rights
and opportunities for all,
and opportunities for all,
opportunities for all,
and contribute to justice
and
contribute to
contribute to
justice
justice
and progress for whole humanity.
and progress
and
for
progress
whole
for all
humanity.
humanity.
We understand that
We
We
understand that
understand
Understand
that
that
order and progress in the society
order and
order and
progress in the
progress in the
society
society
and our aspiration of living
and
and
aspiration
our
aspiration of
aspiration of
living
living
in a peaceful and prosperous world
in a
in a
peaceful and
peaceful and
prosperous world
prosperous
world
can only be realized
can only be
can
realized
only
be
be realized
by moral and mature beings
by
by
moral and
moral
mature
and
beings
mature beings
that nurture equal standards
that nurture
that
equal
nurture
nurture
equal
standards
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 and rights for all
and
and
rights
rights
for
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 all
all
as per divine will.
as per
as
divine
per
divine
will.
divine will.
We therefore promise to bridge the differences
we therefore
We
promise
Therefore
promise
promise
to
to
bridge differences,
differences,
foster unifying ideas,
foster
foster
unifying
unifying
ideas,
ideas,
see everyone as a partner to collaborate,
see
see
everyone as a
everyone as a
partner to
partner
collaborate
to collaborate,
and facilitate conditions
and facilitate
facilitate
conditions
conditions
in which everyone becomes empowered
in which
in which
everyone
everyone
becomes
becomes
empowered
empowered
and responsible for his own development
and
and
responsible for his
responsible
own
for his own
development
development
and collective well-being.
and collective
and
well-being.
collective
collective
well-being.
well-being.
We recognize that
We
We
recognize that
recognize that
absolute freedom
absolute freedom
absolute freedom
is the characteristic of the animal world,
is the
is the
characteristic
characteristic
of
of
the
the
animal
animal
world,
world,
and the social order would cease to exist
and the social
and the
order
social order would
cease
cease
to
to exist
Exist
if we humans insist the same privilege.
if we
we
humans
humans
insist
insist
the
the
same
same
privilege.
privilege.
So we agree that
So we agree that
We
we
agree
agree
that
that
there ought to be limits to rights
there ought to be
there ought to
be
limits
limits to
to
rights
rights
and freedoms,
and freedom,
and freedom,
freedoms,
enabling the human society to thrive.
enabling
enabling the
enabling the
human
human
society to
society to
thrive.
thrive.
Hence, we promise to promote
hence
Hence,
promise to
promise to
Promise to
promote
promote
moderation of human rights
the duration of
moderation
human
of human
rights
rights
and privileges
and
and
privileges
privileges
and equality of rights
and
and
equality
the
of rights
equality of rights
and prerogatives for all humanity.
and
and the
prerogatives of all
prerogatives of
humanity.
all humanity.
Thank you, beloved friends.
Thank you so much, Dr. Panigrahi, for kindly conducting the statement of pledges. I'm sure that the friends will carry home with the new ideas that we have discussed here, and our lifestyle will not remain the same as before. We will have food for thought. We will have a changed mindset. So thank you so much, Professor Panigrahi. Okay, dear friends, so we have started to initiate conversations in small study sessions with some of the friends that they have been attending our discourses. And we have also started talking with some of the friends one-to-one conversations. Even with few of the organizations, they have shown interest in the Baha'i ideas. So we will also, in the time to come, initiate conversations at their workplaces with their staff members. So if any of you are interested to ask for our assistance, for our help, to create a better society with the organizations or in a platform that you are associated with, related to these ideas that we are talking about for the betterment of society, we will be at your service. And you can let us know. We will leave our contact in the chat box, so you can contact us. Just a second, I will share it here. Okay. So, dear friends, we are towards the end of the discourse. It is time for conclusion and the end remarks. What we have learned today from the deliberations, the address of our keynote speaker, that the idea of freedom pervades all human concerns in kind of limitless notions and ideas it can create. The concept of freedom. Freedom is indeed essential to all expressions of human life, and that we must understand that as we just understood, that it can cause humans to overstep the boundary of bounds of propriety. So we should nurture it. We should not nurture in the name of rights only the personal entitlements, which are selfish and against the common will, and rather we should balance it with our duties and responsibilities. Let us understand that absolute freedom, as we just discussed, is the characteristic of the animal world, and we should not be insisting on absolute freedom. The human society would cease to exist. The social order would cease to exist if we insist on absolute freedom for everything. There has to be some difference between the human world and the world of beast. Let me paraphrase what Baha'u'llah says. Liberty causes man to overstep the bounds of propriety. This is what Dr. Merchant was reading from the Baha'i writings. So therefore, the freedom of thought, freedom of action, freedom of expression, all these things are acceptable, but then there has to be certain limits with wisdom. This kind of freedom, of course, all of us, we cherish, and these have received considerable attention of the social thinkers across the centuries. The writings of the philosophers, like Mr. Mishra was talking about, of the Hobbes, Jefferson, Mill, they have liberating influences on the people. But they were conceived during time of rebellion. So the time has changed and the context has changed. Thus, the models and examples of the old world, cannot be applicable. Whatever happened in the history, they need not be. They need not be the same to define our future. If we intend to change our society, we have to behave as mature beings in order to carry forward an ever advancing civilization. What we must learn to do is to apply wisdom and moderation while exercising the personal freedoms and rights that we have. Let me paraphrase what Baha'u'llah says. Anything that passes beyond the limits of moderation ceases to have beneficial influence. Rather, it becomes pernicious for the society. We must understand that using the language of rights, we cannot justify self-interest, which must be restrained for the welfare of humanity and the community where we live. Otherwise, we will continue to remain as a chaotic society. We have to realize that we are a part of the society, and we cannot live our life peacefully in isolation from others, because the welfare of one segment of humanity is linked with the welfare of the whole. Let us remember that whatever we have experienced in the past, it does not have to define our future. We don't have to face the same consequences, if we decide to be mature and change. In the name of rights and freedoms, let us place that we don't promote ideas and norms suiting to our own interest that are against the societal well-being. We must understand that concept of rights and freedoms have to be appropriately interpreted, keeping the principle of justice in view. Let us remember the truth that all our lives emanate from one source and are bound with the same universal law of God that we read in the Statement of Pledges, and therefore it is irresponsible to advocate unequal standard of rights and privileges. Let us promise to be not to be indifferent to the human misery, liberate ourselves from all sorts of prejudices, and embrace everyone as children of one Creator, members of one family, and thereby the right understanding of rights and freedoms will be as clear as the light of the sun. Let us understand that our aspiration of living in a better world, in a peaceful world and prosperous world, can only be realized by the proactive actions of moral and mature human beings who love to nurture equal standards of rights for all as per the will of our Creator. Let us remember that our chaotic world can only be rectified through the consciousness of oneness of humankind, and no attempt to set the human affairs aright can ignore religion. Religion is the only force that can engender inner motivation to human beings, to be selfless, to be moderate, to remain content, and to contribute to the life of the society and its well-being. Universal participation, to the our sharing, our authority and responsibility, equal access to knowledge and resources. These are some of the ideas that we have to cultivate in our daily interactions at our workplace and everywhere else. We cannot bring about a mature society forcefully, but rather by empathic attitude of the human beings. Let us decide not to complain, but to take proactive actions without waiting for others to act. Let us build our future together, even by holding the hands of those who are stuck in the past. Let us persuade them to come ahead, pull them from darkness and show them the way. Our life, learning, and education are of little value, if they're not used for the service of the general good. We must justify our lives as human beings, which is distinct from all other forms of life due to its power of intellect and power of wisdom and the capacity to segregate the truth from error. On a final note, let us work hard to put aside our own old divisive customs and old mindsets. Let us try to build bridges by not imposing our standards on anyone else. We should avoid the cynicism and be optimistic, pragmatic, avoid fault finding, avoid inertia and apathy. We should shun the worldly interest, reject consumerism and competitive mindset, reject excessive amusements, violence, and controversial ideas, view everyone as a potential partner that we should collaborate with, we can work with, and initiate positive conversations with them based on the ideas that we have learned today in our discourse. We should initiate conversations with our extended family, our neighborhood, and wider society. It is only through education, dear friends, and meaningful conversations with everyone in the light of the teachings of God that we hear from time to time, we can cultivate conducive conditions which will be helpful for the nation building and social progress. Dear friends, the bottom line is that the quality of freedom and its expression, I repeat, the quality of freedom and its expression very much depends on the capacity of the human beings. Very much depends on the capacity of the human beings. For instance, they need to be trained, they need to be knowledgeable, and they need to be understand the limit that we should adhere to for maintaining order in the society. Let us remember that all the messengers of God appeared and invited people to enjoy freedom, the freedom from want, the freedom from war, the freedom to unite others, the freedom to grow, to learn, to progress, freedom to enjoy life in peace and joy. So all of us are challenged and have the obligation to uphold and justify the distinction between the stubbornness to have absolute liberty and limit that limits our possibilities for genuine progress, and the moderation or limits that ensures the enjoyment of true liberty and both individual and collective growth. So with this note, I thank all of you, dear friends, for participating in this discourse. We will come back again, once again, after a couple of weeks' time with another crucial theme that affects the human lives. We request all of you to support this modest initiative and publicize it widely, and invite your friends and contacts to join these programs. This is the only way we can build bridges and create a unifying vision and consciousness, which is so necessary to build a better society. I thank our keynote speaker today, Dr.Sohayl Mohajer, for his support and kindness for his participation. I thank Dr. Merchant. I thank Professor Panigrahi. I thank Mr. Mishra. I thank Mr. Hemmati. I thank Mrs. Basanti Shinoy. I thank everyone else who have supported us, who have helped us for making this discourse so successful. I have seen the scientists, the civil servants, the writers, all of them are getting attracted to our discourse. So I really thank all of you, and I really, from the core of my heart, I thank all of you in order to elevate this conversation to be associated in a better way in the time to come with all of us. Please do, if you are joining for the first time, please do leave your contacts in the chat box so that we can communicate with you once again. So please take care of yourself, your surroundings, your fellow human beings around you. Stay content, keep smiling in the face of all the odds that you face in the society. Please do leave your contacts in the chat box if you are joining for the first time. I pray for the good health, success, and contentment for all of you, dear friends. Thank you so much. Namaskar, and all the best to all of you. Thank you very much.